Hello, friends. Welcome back to the Midnight Horror Picture Show. I'm so glad you're here. Though this interview was my first time talking with today's guest, our films have shown together at multiple festivals over the past few years, and it's a wonder we didn't run into each other sooner. Austin Torres majored in film studies at Michigan State University, and his film Spider recently won Best of Fest at the Dunwich Horror Fest, the Festival Director's Choice Award at the Milwaukee Horror Festival, and Best Michigan-Made Film at the Desmond District Demons Film Festival. Austin has worked tirelessly to get to where he is and knows a thing or two about the business and self-promotion. He has successfully crowdfunded for short films, attended countless festivals, and hosts his own horror-centric podcast, Would You Die? This conversation has some wonderful insights for filmmakers and fans into the passion and determination it takes to self-start a successful horror film and why collaboration is so important. I'm very excited to share with you my conversation with Austin Torres. All right. Austin, welcome to the Midnight Horror Picture Show.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you here, man. All right. So we got a lot to talk about. Let's start with having you introduce yourself, talk about a little bit of your background for our listeners and viewers who are unfamiliar with your work.
Sure. So my name's Austin Torres. I am a horror filmmaker here in the lovely state of Michigan. I have a couple horror short films under my belt. I also have a horror podcast called Would You Die? I've been in the horror game for a couple years now.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Yeah, and we'll talk more about Would You Die because I'd love to hear where that started. You've been all over on the festival circuit for the past couple years with Ice Scream, Blood Witch, and now Spider, which as of recording this, just released on YouTube, but yes, I'll be linking all three of those in the show description so everybody can go and check those out on your YouTube channel. Talk to us about how you got into filmmaking.
I don't want to be like, well, I woke up one day, all of a sudden I was a filmmaker, because it's like very gradual. But like when I was little, I grew up with a family of cinephiles. So movies have always been around me. My mom, I like to say, there's not that many people who love movies more than me, but my mom loves movies like 10 times more than me. And she is the reason. And then my grandpa was my best friend growing up, and he was a big influence on my taste and what I like as well. And he would show me a bunch of my favorite films that are still my favorites now. So between my mom and my grandpa, I was always going to be a cinephile. How that turned into actually making the movies was I wasn't really good at anything else. And this is the thing I'm least bad at. At least I like to think that.
I think I'm the least bad at. I don't think you stumble into filmmaking, right? Like,
right.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's it though, I've talked about this with other guests, but it's very much, filmmaking doesn't come from anywhere. Like, you don't get into it unless you're passionate about it, right? And I think coming from a cinephile family background where movies, and I get that. My mom, she was the kind of parent that if she knew I liked movies from a young age, and if there was like a big release coming out, in November for like the holidays or something that I was really excited about, she'd pull me out of school on a Friday to go see it during the day, and
yeah,
fostered that within me. So I get you're brought up with it, right?
Yeah. And there are like certain movies that I consider, like, to use the young people lingo, like Canon films of my family, which a lot of them are like, I'm sure, Canon films of every family.
Sure. What are some of those films?
Because of me, Jurassic Park is a big one. It's been my favorite movie ever since I was 3 years old, and I just kind of forced my family to love that movie the same way I did, and my friends too. Like, Jaws is a big Canon film for my family. As you can tell, we're big Spielberg fans.
I was just gonna say that's the whole thing. I mean, if you were growing up in the 90s, Spielberg was the director. Like, Spielberg was the first director I knew by name, I can tell you that.
Same here. John Williams was the first composer I knew. I love film composers, by the way. We can record a whole episode on our favorite composers if we really wanted to.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And maybe, you know what, next time we have you on, maybe we'll go more into that.
Yes, we'll talk Silvestri. We'll talk Jerry Goldsmith.
There you go. Absolutely, man. Good polls. But yeah, okay. So Jaws, Jurassic Park being like Canon films, which are, you know, I've heard arguments against Jaws being a horror film, but
that don't make sense to me.
I know. People are like, it's not a horror film. It's not. It's more about, you know, the people and how they deal with it. And I'm like, no, it's definitely a horror film. Like,
I'm sorry, but does Sidney Prescott not deal with the problem of Ghostface?
Right.
Come on.
Right. Exactly. And I think that you can attribute that to the general public's perception of horror and horror being a lesser art form, you know, hence the Oscars and stuff like that, and horror movies getting not the recognition they deserve.
And when they do get the recognition, people are hesitant to call them horror movies.
Right.
Like Silence of the Lambs.
That's exactly what I was about to say. Silence of the Lambs is a thriller. A thriller.
I'm sorry. When a dude tears off another dude's face and wears it, that's a horror movie.
Yes, absolutely. I don't think... All right, well, wait, because by that logic, then Face Off with Nick Cage and John Travolta would also be a horror movie, and I'm not sure about that one.
Listen, there's too many doves in that movie for me to not think it's horror.
So Jaws, we agree, is horror. Jurassic Park,
I think it has some of the best horror sequences, whether you think it's a horror movie or not. Velociraptors are scary.
Oh, yeah. Even the way they shot it, oh my God. You know, you got the head coming down into the window behind a character and stuff like that, and just the eye there. The chase scene on the back of the Jeep, it's all there, and it's very horror adjacent, right?
It at least has these amazing horror scenes.
Yes.
In horror filmmaking.
Yes.
And the scene where Laura Dern, Dr. Ellie Sattler, I am a true Jurassic Park fan. Trust me, guys. When she's in the shed trying to bring back the power and then electrocutes Tim. Spoiler alert, if you're listening and you haven't seen Jurassic Park, there's this great like push in on like this dolly push in on her, like, Mr. Hammond, I think we're back in business. Then boom, Velociraptor on the screen left of her, and it's like this great jump scare, and I think it's one of the best jump scares in any movie, like any movie, really.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. 100%. And you know what? Just you bringing that up, having watched your short films, and listeners, viewers, go and watch the short films we have linked in the description. I see you doing some of that in your films, especially in Spider, which we will get to, but very much in the bottom corner of frame, you see the movement. We'll get to that though. Okay. So
I wear my influences on my sleeve.
No, I'm right there with you. Okay. So with those two specifically being Canon movies for you, it makes sense that you would levitate towards the horror genre. But was there anything that pushed you more towards horror than, say, doing a comedy or a drama?
So when I was in college, I went to Michigan State. I was in their film studies program. So my degree really lent towards a more theoretical approach. And once I realized, oh shit, I'm not going to hold a camera unless I do something about it, I quickly got into one of their production minors so I could get that experience. But I remember taking this class and they had us making like little short films, right, as part of the class. And the whole point of it was like making films on a budget. It was a great class, but I really struggled in coming up with stories because they were like, what, right? What's achievable, right? Like little dramas or little comedies. And I don't want to sound closed-minded, but I'm not interested in like real person stories. Like everyone else was making coffee, like, and no disrespect, because a lot of these were fantastic, but like coffee house dramas, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I thought for a second, and just because like in the film community, it's become such a cliche. When you said making coffee, I was like, oh, like shot of alarm clock, 7 a.m., shot of coffee, you know, like
that too.
Yeah.
But I bring that up because I couldn't connect to that. So I was struggling with that. And I ended up making like little documentaries about ducks on the Red Cedar River. And they were cute. People liked, but it took me a while to really, because in my head, I wanted to make the Jurassic Parks and the Star Wars. But like Steven Spielberg's not going to come up to Michigan and be like, hey, you have a dream, sir. Make Jurassic World 7 for it. You know, like that's not going to happen. And it wasn't until I really started embracing horror as a genre, because I've liked the genre for a long time, but I never really grew up thinking it was my favorite, but I always like were intrigued by them because they used to scare me, right? And then I stopped getting scared and I start loving them. But it took a while before I realized, oh, this is a passion that's been brewing for years. I'm just now seeing it. And once I started embracing that, that's when my imagination unlocked. And that's when I was able to really, I don't know, start finding my voice, I think is the best way to put it.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I think that's very well said. Because some people, it's immediate, like, hey, I only watched horror films, you know, like horror films got me immediately, and that was it. That was my path. But for a lot of people, it is, like, myself included. It was very much, I was like, oh, you know, I want to do more character study pieces, like whatever, and with like more of like a thriller vibe. But then after doing a couple of those shorts, I was like, okay, I think it was Horror Film Roulette because it was Eric Steele.
Yeah.
He had asked me to do it the first year because he knew I did film stuff. I had, you know, worked with him on a side gig. And he's like, oh, you should do this. I was like, I don't have time. The second year I did it. And after I made the first horror film, I was like, no, this is what I want to do. You know, like I had more fun writing this and putting this together than anything else I had worked on previously. I was like, I think this is something that I want to take that left turn into this field. So I get that, man. So I think this is an interesting perspective you have as someone who is a filmmaker, who's made multiple short films at this point, and is putting them into festivals nationally, internationally. Okay. So internationally, going through, I'm sure, Film Freeway and doing that.
Yep.
Can you, just for any listeners, viewers who are unfamiliar with the process or just starting out as filmmakers, can you talk about how you started with that, what you've accomplished through it, and what the experience has been like as a filmmaker going to festivals, having your work screened?
It's something that you really got to figure out just a little step at a time. I really don't think there is one right way to do it, because I would argue I'm probably not doing it the right way, but I am finding success. So it, result-wise, is the right way, right? Or one of the right ways. But the way I kind of started doing it was I made my very first short film, which is called Best Day Ever. That one is really just a comedy wearing a Halloween costume. And I submitted that to like 18 festivals and it got into 3. but I just kind of like, I didn't really do research on these festivals. I was just like, oh, that looks close. Oh, that sounds fun. Boop, boop, boop. And then whatever happened. But then when you go three out of 18, you're like, maybe I should put more thought into how I do what I'm doing. So the next one I did was Ice Cream, and that one was I would say was very successful. We submitted it to 20 festivals, maybe 19, and it got into 10.
Yeah.
So the thing with festivals is you do your research and you make your films and you come up with these strategies, and at the end of the day, you really don't have that much control over it. The programmers could be having a bad day, or there's just so much good movie, because there are really good movies out there. If you're listening to this, if you're getting a rejection, it's more likely that the programmers really wanted your film and they had to make like a really tough decisions, as opposed to they didn't think your film was good.
Right. 100%. Yeah. And I think, again, you and I have very similar experience in this, because I started with the first film I started submitting to festivals was in like 2018, I think. Mm-hmm. And I did the same thing. I submitted to 10, it got accepted into 3. And from there, though, I've had a film in the festival circuit every year since. And my acceptance rate has grown every year since, which is good. It's you brought up the most important point, which is do your research, right? Mm-hmm. I didn't. And it is a lot of test and see where it is, look, or like you're looking up festivals that maybe you can attend locally or ones you've never heard of elsewhere. Do your research on the festivals. I will say not all festivals are created equal. And you learn that through experience, or that's one of the reasons I started this podcast, right? Was to highlight some festivals that I wholeheartedly recommend, talk to people in their experience at festivals. So what are some festivals that you have really enjoyed that one of your films has been shown at?
So the first one that's coming to mind is a Hell's Half Mile Film Festival and Music Festival in Bay City. I've been very, very fortunate to get in back to back
nice.
With Ice Cream and Spider. I do not take that for granted. And Don, who is one of the film programmers there, I met him at actually a different festival, but he is the coolest dude. He's so kind, and he's been so helpful to me as I kind of just figured it out. And Bay City is like a gray area, and the people at Hell's Half Mile are so friendly and so helpful, and like they got some great venues in Bay City. So Ice Cream played at the State Theater, I think.
Okay.
And that was incredible. And then Spider played at their Masonic Temple.
Okay. Yeah. I'm very familiar. We had one of our shorts, Party's Over.
Yes, I love that one.
But Party's Over was there in 2023 at Hell's Half Mile. So, and we were in the Michigan block in the observatory they had as an auditorium. So it was in the observatory, which like kind of skewed a little bit because it's a dome, but
right.
Super cool. I mean, it's really, when it comes to like multiple day film festivals, especially in like the Midwest Michigan region, Michigan, Ohio, Illinois, I don't think there's anything like Hell's Half Mile. It is a party, and there is programming at multiple venues all day long. They have filmmaker meetups, like filmmaker only evenings, like a little VIP area. There's bars all around downtown and restaurants and shops. It's very cool what they're doing for that and for the city. But that is, and it was also, I think in 2023, it was listed for Movie Maker magazine's like top 10 festivals or something.
Well deserved.
Or top 25. It might be top 25 in the US, but either way, definitely one worth submitting to and one worth attending, even if you're not in it. If you're just a fan of film and want to see some good indie films, that is a good one to check out. What else?
So there is the Lake Michigan Film Festival in Lansing, and I really enjoyed that one. That one was also, I was very lucky to do a back-to-back with Ice Cream and Spider. They play at a Celebration, so it's a very nice screen. There is one I did last year called the Festival of Darkness, which that one was pretty cool. They only accepted 13 films, so I wonder if they're going to try and grow or what they're, because I think they're newer. But what was cool about that one was it played at the Redford Theater in Detroit.
Okay, yeah. No, that's awesome. And the Redford is a great historical theater that does a lot of really cool programming in the Metro Detroit area. No, that's really cool because I believe, I was going to ask, because I believe Festival of Darkness, when they started, they were running out of the Tangent Gallery downtown.
Okay.
So this is a venue change for them, and that's a huge step up. So that's awesome.
And what was really crazy about that one was last year, Spider closed the festival. So they picked Spider to be the last film.
That's so much fun because I've had that like in a couple festivals, but when you get to close the festival, it's so much fun. And it's usually because the programmers have identified your film as a crowd pleaser that's going to wrap up everything on a good note, right? Like people are going to be stoked walking out of your film and they want like that to be the punctuation at the end of their festival. And I think that's like such a great honor. So to have that, man, especially at the Redford, dude.
It was one of the best nights of my life. And it was an honor because, we're both Michigan filmmakers, so the Redford is like a holy site for us because that's where the Evil Dead premiered. And you're not a Michigan filmmaker and not love Sam Raimi.
Right. Absolutely.
And to have a film called Spider?
Exactly. So the Redford, for those who aren't familiar with the Metro Detroit area, the Redford was used in It Follows.
Yeah.
As a shooting location. So the theater scenes in It Follows, because that whole film was shot in Metro Detroit, but that's a bigger name horror movie that I think people can get some recognition. If you want to see the Redford, go rewatch It Follows.
That's a great movie too.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely, man. And the way that blew up and became so much more than what it was originally from, again, local.
They played it at the Redford this past October for its 10th anniversary, and I went.
Did you?
Yeah, I had to. I'm like, I got to see It Follows where it was filmed.
I only went to the Redford once last year, and it was during the summer, but it's because the sax man from the Lost Boys did a night there. And it was an interesting experience. It was wild. So like on Friday, they played the Lost Boys, and on Saturday it was supposed to be like, they advertised it as like a party, but like we got there and it was just like a couple vendors and he played for like 45 minutes at just some of his own stuff. And he's just the nicest guy. Except, obviously he's much older now than he was in the 80s when they did that.
Sure, yeah.
But his, like, mark culturally, right? Like, from the 20 seconds he's in the Lost Boys, like, honestly, I think he has, like, less than a minute of screen time. And he is still doing these events, like, solo and being able to sell tickets because... yeah, he's so recognizable, and he still, like, wears his chains and stuff.
I would, too, if I was that iconic.
Right. So let's get back to your films. Let's talk about Ice Cream, Blood Witch, Spider. Tell us about those and your experience on the festival circuit with them.
Yes, so as I kind of mentioned a little earlier, I have the 4 short films, but Ice Cream, Spider, and The Blood Witch, those 3, I really find Kindred's. I've found something like they're like sibling movies, like are like the 3 heads of King Ghidorah. But I don't want to be cocky and like, yeah, my movies are basically King Ghidorah. Nah, but you know what I'm trying to say? They're kindred spirits.
Yes.
Whereas the first one is something different. That was me like, hey, can I make a movie? Cool. The next ones is me figuring out who I am. That's where I'm coming out as a filmmaker, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. You're finding your voice. You're getting comfortable with it. You made one that's like, okay, I know how to do this now.
Yeah.
Now I can, now that the technical stuff is accounted for and I know what I'm doing, going in, I can focus. Yeah, absolutely, man. I think.
Now that I know it's my job to yell action and cut, now we're off to the races. Now we got something cooking here. But Ice Cream, we shot that in August of 2022. We finished that, I think, December. I think we, with post and everything, only took us a couple months. And we started submitting to festivals. We premiered at the Motor City Legacy Con Festival in Romulus.
Yeah.
April of 2023. And Ice Cream went on a little run. And then because of who I am as a person, once you get that taste, you want to keep going.
Yeah.
And Spider came about fairly quickly after Ice Cream. Because Spider was a lot more ambitious, we did a little Indiegogo campaign and raised $5,000 to make it.
Oh, nice.
And we got a little bit over 5,000 and we used it all. So for people watching on YouTube, sorry listeners, this is the Spider puppet. This is where some of the money went. Most of the money went to paying cast and crew because I became friends with an actor named Spooky Madison, who is just blowing up in the indie horror world right now. They are awesome. But, they live in Ohio, so as production, we're not going to make them stay in Ohio and then be like, find a place. No, we found them a hotel, and that ate into our budget. Then we want to make sure we had, this is very, very important. When you guys are making budgets, put into your budget your post, what you're expecting for editing and color and sound, and then leave some for festival too. Like, try and put that all at once. So it's like, hey, if you're going to raise $10,000 to make your film, you don't want to raise another $2,000 because someone needs to edit it.
Right. That's great advice. And I think that brings up something that you could speak to as well, which is, so you ran a successful Indiegogo campaign. You raised your $5,000. I mean, and that's not small, right?
Right.
What are your tips? Where did you find success in advertising that and being able to raise that money? Because I'm sure a lot of filmmakers who watch this or listen to this are looking to do something similar.
So when you're first starting out as a filmmaker, you'll want to do like Indiegogo stuff if you need to raise that kind of money. It's hard to break out and go viral. And that helps you raise money is virality. Yeah. I don't know if I said that right, but getting it out there helps. On Spider, I would say Spider's a success. We hit our goal. We hit a little bit above our goal. But Spider's success did not come from going viral. We didn't really break out of our family and friend circle. I just am blessed with amazing family and friends.
Right. No, and I mean, that's what you have to rely on sometimes, right? When it's crowdsourcing. Yes. And it's not, as much as I think a lot of us don't want to be, like, oh, hey, aunt, uncle, mom, dad, give me money for this. I think it's one of those things that when you do something like an Indiegogo and you're like, hey, I'm doing this. I'm very excited about this. It's thought out. Like, everything's there. We just need the money to make it happen. People want to invest in you, and especially those closest to you. I think that makes sense, right? As an artist, people want to invest in you and see you do well.
Oh, definitely. And be open to any help you can get. If someone gives you $5, be thankful for that. That might be their only spare $5. You don't know what they're going through. If they don't donate anything, but they share, or maybe they share multiple times, that's a huge blessing, you know?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I think that with that, you know, being part of a community of filmmakers in the horror space, you know, going to these festivals and meeting people.
Yeah.
Numerous times I've thrown money at different people's campaigns when I've seen them, because we're all here for the same reason. And you know what? I got a couple bucks I can chip in to support your project because I am also invested in this community, right? And I'll put my money where my mouth is there. There's a lot of people I really like, and I see they're doing a new project. I'm like, yeah, here's, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great way. So, you know, building community, meeting other people, like, is just great for career-wise in general as a filmmaker. But I think especially in this space, everybody's pretty generous with their money and time when it comes to supporting each other.
Definitely.
Yeah. So Spider gets funded. Yes. You hire an actor from Ohio, put him up here for shooting. How many days did you shoot Spider?
We shot for 1 day. We had Spooky up here for the weekend. So we picked them up from the bus station in Detroit on Friday. We took some insider baseball for everyone. We took them to Xochimilco's, which is one of the best Mexican restaurants in Detroit. I'm biased. My family's been going there since well before I was born. But we went there, and when we got to our shooting location in St. Clair Shores, we were able to do blocking and just kind of not quite rehearsal. I mean, it was rehearsal, but it was just kind of like breaking the ice, you know. Me just kind of learning how Spooky likes to work, them learning how I like to work, just kind of bonding. We shot all day on Spider, and then the next day we got breakfast and then dropped them off back at the bus station. And then they continued to kick ass in the horror world.
Hell yeah. So, Spider, like we alluded to earlier, I am very much see the Jurassic Park, you know, throws to its, you know, we're framed in like 1/3, and then in the bottom corner of the opposite third, we'll see the spider scurry across. It's very classic tension building through those like little movements on screen. The choreography, and I know you were just talking about that, where you kind of like walk through each scene, but the choreography between Spider, actor, camera is very intentional throughout the film, and I think is something for first-time directors to take a look at when they're watching it. That whole process. Now, was that collaborating with your cinematographer to figure out those shots, or did you walk in or like, no, I know she's going to move from the fridge, Spider's on the wall behind, drops down, or, you know?
A little bit of both. I knew going in what I wanted the blocking to be, and I came in with a very oversized shot list that I knew I was going to cut shots out and combine and stuff like that. But Sean Snyder, who was my DP on Spider, he was also my DP on Best Day Ever. I trust him with my life. He's amazing. And, you know, Spider was my third directorial effort, and it's a short film. Sean's been on so many sets. So when he has an idea, me liking to think I'm a good director listens, you know, because he'll see stuff that I don't see. And then Spooky was very collaborative on this because Spooky's been on a bunch of sets. That, like I said, this was my third short. So we kind of came up with stuff together, but I did have a game plan going in, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it absolutely does. And you bring up another really good point that people should really take to heart is trust your crew.
Yes.
If you don't trust your crew, get a new crew or figure your own stuff out. You need to trust your crew. Film is, as we all know, is a collaborative art form, right? And as much as the writer, director on set is going to be like the leader calling the shots, if you're not listening to your crew, you're missing opportunities. And I believe that to my core.
Yeah. Whenever I'm looking for a DP, I always want a DP who's far more experienced than me, because I think that's what a good director does. You bring in the best talent you can possibly get. But if you're going to bring in that talent and you're not going to listen to their idea, why did you bring them in? You might as well DP it yourself.
Right. I know one of our guests, before I was talking to them, they're like, oh, I crew up with people who are more talented than me. And I was like, that's it though. That's because I think each film I've made has been a learning experience for me. 100%.
Oh, definitely.
In ways I had planned for and in ways I didn't. But I am constantly learning from my crew, and that makes me a better filmmaker for the next project. And I think that's, especially when you're starting out and you're doing shorts and stuff, like that's how it should be your whole career. The whole career is you should always want to do better. And I think that speaks to, the festivals. You start with, submitting to 10, but only getting in a couple. You go on and you learn and you grow and you move forward. And that's the name of the game, right?
Exactly. And Spider is at this point my most successful film. People seem to like it, and I'm very happy with it. It's very validating.
It's very fun. So are you afraid of spiders?
Yes, I'm actually a little arachnophobic.
Okay. I am very arachnophobic.
I freeze up whenever I see one. Like I can't control it. I just freeze, and it's...
Yeah, no, I've gotten a little bit better about like house spiders and stuff. And that is only out of necessity because my wife... I
mean, I can deal with my puppet.
Yeah.
That's it. That's my baby. That is my child.
So even after Spider, because I was hoping that maybe if you were arachnophobic, making Spider movie would be like some kind of exposure therapy where you might...
I was hoping that too. It didn't.
All right. Well, good to know. Then I don't have to make a Spider movie. But that, when we talk about, films that kind of molded us when we were younger, and in our pre-show chatter, we talked about seeing horror movies like maybe a little too young. And that's when we brought up Jaws. Arachnophobia was another one for me that I saw way too young. And I think mess with me. There's also, I thought that for years. Okay. I thought that was like why I was scared of spiders. Turns out, and I guess I'll just tell the story real quick.
Yeah.
My mom. Okay. So I'm over like my parents, I don't know, a year ago or so with my wife, and we're just chatting, and we were talking about the public pool in St. Clair Shores. And my mom's like, oh, yeah, I thought you were never going to go in there again after the incident. And I was like, what? What are you talking about, Mom? And she's like, oh, you don't remember with the spiders? And I was like, Mom, what do you mean? And she's like, oh, no, you were like 4 or 5. And it was like the first day that the pool opened for the season. And you wanted to be the first person to go down the water slide. There's a big water slide. You wanted to be the first person in line. Like, you were so excited, and we got you there. You were first in line. And I was like, okay. And she's like, so you got up there, and they had not, because the St. Clair Shores public pool is right on the lake. So it's right on Lake St. Clair. And one thing I've learned is that there are a lot of spiders by natural bodies of water. Like that's just where they hang out. No one had cleaned the slide the whole off season. So I was the first person, little 5-year-old me, very excited, just going through spider webs the entire way down.
No.
I apparently was inconsolable afterwards and traumatized to the point that like I legit repressed this memory. So I don't remember it at all. I have had dreams my whole life about spiders jumping onto my face, and it only made sense a year ago after I heard this story. So like, oh my God, everything makes so much more sense now. I just thought it was
Oh my God, that's terrifying.
Yeah, be something cool to put in a movie down the line, but
listen, I'm good.
Yeah. Oh man. All right. So spiders doing well. Spiders a lot of fun to watch. I see why it's, being put in the position of honor to close out festivals and stuff like that. It is a lot of fun. So you did the Blood Witch.
Yes. Blood Witch is a very interesting one because we made it after Spider, especially ones that explicitly said, oh, we don't care if it's on YouTube. Like I went to those first with this one because like Ice Cream and Spider, we made those movies, we put them out to festivals, we release on YouTube when I feel like they had a successful run.
Yeah.
So Ice Cream did 10, Spider did 18. Spider could have kept going, honestly, but I didn't want it to.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I get that. For, back to talking about festivals a little bit.
Yeah.
When I usually have my list before I even start submitting, and I'll do like a year circuit, right? Because that is another thing that people who haven't dealt with Film Freeway might not know, but the earlier you submit to a festival, the cheaper it usually is. It's tiered pricing based on deadlines. And if you know which festivals you want to submit to, you can plan, hey, okay, instead of if you haven't raised an extra $1,000 or $2,000 or whatever for festival submissions, what I did, especially when I was first starting to submit, was like, okay, I'm going to take $50 a paycheck, right? Every 2 weeks, I'm going to take $50 and I have this list of festivals I want to submit to. And with $50, what makes the most sense to submit to right now and the earliest, and do that over, 4 months to get into all the festivals I wanted to, which makes it a lot more palatable than dropping $1,000 up front.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
And you can kind of like see your strategy like go, and instead of doing it all at once and then you're waiting months.
Right. Well, and that's the whole thing though too, is, festivals, even horror festivals, like even in the genre, obviously horror festivals are very big in October.
Yeah.
We all know this. So those festivals are going to open up in, usually a couple months beforehand, like up to 6 months beforehand. And that's when you want to get in. So you get in April, but you won't hear that you got accepted or not until early September, right?
Right.
But there's a lot of good horror festivals during the summer, in the spring, a lot of big ones too. So
people love horror.
They do. Honestly, horror festivals are the most popular festivals I've been to. They, there's a built-in fan base. People, and if your work is not, if you don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars behind your project, like that's the great thing about horror is you don't need to. Good horror can be made on no budget.
And people seek out horror. So when you're done with your festival run, you still, even if you just throw it on YouTube, there's still a chance it can catch fire on YouTube.
Right. With Blood Witch in particular, I thought it was funny because it's something I've done myself. The self-references in the beginning to both Spider and Ice Cream. Those are just for me things, for me and my crew, when we're watching them. But I have referenced other films I've done in the past in a couple now.
Can I tell you why I did that?
Yeah, tell me.
So when I was writing Blood Witch, I always knew it was going to be kind of like a date night, right? So I'm like, well, why is he going to tell his date this story?
Right.
They're struggling to find something to do. What are they struggling? Oh, okay, scary movie night. She wants to get that's perfect. Why aren't they just watching a scary movie though? So I'm like, what if she just seen everything, you know? And I'm like, oh, I can make fun of some horror movies, but then I'm like, that's mean. And I didn't want to be mean. So I'm like, oh, I've made a couple. I could just make fun of myself. It's fine.
Absolutely.
I promise this is going to make sense, but it comes from ice cream in a sense.
Okay.
Ice cream, as I mentioned earlier, we shot in August of 2022. We finish it up in December, maybe January of December 2022, January 2023. I don't quite remember. Premieres in April of 2023. I start working on Spider in February of 2023. Like from concept of idea to planning the Indiegogo campaign, which real quick side note to that, plan your Indiegogo campaign. It took us we were a success because we planned as much as we could ahead of time. I posted every single day. But what helped me post every day was we had a game plan going in.
Okay. Yeah. So how did you create that game plan?
I looked at what my friends who have been around longer in the film world than me, I just kind of studied their Indiegogo campaign. I just went on Indiegogo and just started searching horror film campaigns and seeing like, why did this one grab my attention? This one didn't. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And kind of just seeing what was working for other people, what wasn't working for other people. And
do you have any specifics like that you grabbed that you were like, oh, this is something I want to include, or this is what grabbed my attention. I want to do this.
So I notice like a lot of people, they'll be like, you do this, you get a shirt, you get a poster, you know, and that is great perk. But if you're trying to raise $20,000, I think that is a great perk to have. But when you're raising that $20,000, you know in the back of your mind, you're going to have to use some of that for shirts.
Right.
If you're trying to raise $5,000, I don't think a shirt's a good perk because that will eat into that $5,000.
100%. Because even if at cost, you're getting a shirt for, say, $10, right?
Exactly.
But you're only, so your $25 donation for a shirt, if you're setting it that low, is actually only netting you $15.
Right. Exactly. So the only physical perk we had was a limited edition poster.
Oh, that's fine.
That Doug and I both signed. And we put that at the $250 mark.
Okay.
But we included all the other perks in that. So you're not paying $250 for a poster. That is insane. You get what I called it. It was like a behind the scenes video that I called the digital scrapbook. I included the film script. They got put in the credits. I included all of that in the $250. So with the perks, ain't nobody paying $250 for a t-shirt, right? Or a poster. Right. You include, I like the bundle method where you include everything else too.
Yes. So when you're setting up your Indiegogo campaign, every tiered reward as you go up also includes the lower tiers beneath it, right?
Exactly.
And I think that's like a really interesting thing because I think a lot of people may start looking at doing an Indiegogo campaign and see the rewards offered by other creators or other filmmakers and be like, oh, well, I need to figure out a sticker and physical release and a poster and a t-shirt and whatever else. And your approach, you being like, no, physical, especially for a lower budget campaign, physical is a top tier reward. Everything else you're getting digital because it's not pulling out of our production fund.
Right. And I think like those physical rewards, that makes sense when you're doing a feature.
Right.
If you're going to offer the Blu-ray, yeah, that that's a great, one of my friends did an Indiegogo campaign. I got the Blu-ray. Like when I donated to their campaign, I bought the Blu-ray perk because, so that's a good thing. I knew going in, this was going to be a 5-6 minute short.
Right.
I'm not putting that on a Blu-ray.
Right. No, 100%, 100%. And that's because I've seen people do that where they're like, get a DVD of the short film. I'm like, bro, the short film's under 10 minutes long. I don't need a 10-minute DVD.
Right. And that would have worked in 2005.
Right. Yes. Pre the era of YouTube as TV,
Right.
I think that's a very good point. Know what you have, know what you're making, make rewards that make sense for your project. Right?
Right.
Because I do think that's another thing. Yes, swag for features is different. How, unless they're like here to support you as an artist, swag for a sub 10-minute short film it doesn't hit the same, right?
Exactly. And on Blood Witch, we did not do an Indiegogo campaign.
No.
Partly because we learned a bunch on Spider. Blood Witch, we were able to bring the budget down.
Perfect.
We went 5,000 to 1,200.
Oh, wow.
We also, Spider, we paid everyone very generously. That was a top tier production. Blood Witch, we asked for favors. Blood Witch, we had a much younger crew who were hungry. And they were willing to do us a favor because they wanted to be there. And it also helped that I had made Ice Cream and Spider.
Yeah. So
the people that came on, they knew that I wasn't like talking out of my ass, like I was going to put in my work too. And so when you kind of build your name, that makes things a little easier if you're going to ask more of people.
100%. And I believe I said something similar on our recent episode we recorded, but that's it, right? You, especially if you're asking people to do something for free, what are you offering? And you need to look at that objectively. Right. You can't be so precious about like, well, it's my idea and I have this script I wrote. If you have nothing to back that up, you're asking people to donate their time, their skills, their artistry. Right. You need more than that. Like, unless you have a personal relationship where you can be like, hey, bro, do me a solid and help me out with this. To pull other people in, it's very much a give and take. Is okay, if they're giving their time, what are you giving back?
Exactly. And something I 100% just believe with my whole body is you feed your crew well. You feed them fucking well. Blood Witch was a 2-day shoot. The first day, I think we had Jimmy John's and like a bunch of crafty and donuts and coffee in the morning. The second day, coffee, donuts, the crafty, and Doug ordered Mediterranean for everyone. You don't eat like that on film sets, generally.
Right. No, especially not on like, low budget short films. It's you right. Get Little Caesar's pizza and you don't complain about it.
Right. So it's like, if they're going to do this for free, we are not going to skimp on the food. We're going to eat well.
And that's such a big part, at this level of, low, no budget filmmaking is keeping morale on set. Keeping morale high, making sure, checking in with everyone, making sure they're okay, and making it a good experience where people want to work with you again.
Right. Exactly. And yes, as a director, it's your job to make a good movie, but that's everyone's job. That's the actor's job. That's the editor's job. That's everyone. Everyone wants to make a good movie. But when you're on set and you're leading a team, I think sometimes people forget the leading part of director. They're like, they can be precious with their vision, or maybe they let their ego get in the way, so they're yelling at everyone. And I'm like, are you really a good director then?
Respect the people who are taking the time to work with you.
Yes.
You can, but it's going to make it a lot harder if you're going to act like a diva on set. Like, I think that misses the point of building a community around you to help you create more, you know?
Right. And it's like William Friedkin could do it because he made The French Connection and The Exorcist. We're not William Friedkin.
100%. 100%.
It's also not the 70s.
Right. And there's no reason. I don't see any excuse to treat your cast or crew poorly. Learn to communicate. Just learn to communicate what you need. Right. And, you know, or if it's someone who's hard to work with, thank them for their time because they still donated their time.
Yep.
Find someone new on the next project or, you know, or the next day, if that's what you got to do. If you're like, hey, I just can't work with someone, don't be a dick. I think is a really good takeaway from that. Yeah. It again, at this level, it's such a give and take that if you're going to be awful to work with, you're going to end your possibilities. Like any opportunities you get, you're going to kill them before they even start.
And I think what young directors should realize is a good makeup effects artist, a good sound guy, a good cinematographer, a good gaffer, they're going to get work and they're going to get paid. If you are a bad director, that's going to go around. And you're not going to get their talents. They're going to tell their circle, that guy's a dick.
And that's the flip side of this coin, right? We've been talking so much about community and how, like, you want to build a community and, like, whatever. But at the end of the day, everybody's part of the community. And if it gets around, like you said, you know, that you are awful to work with, that's going to go further than just the person you're having the interaction with.
Exactly. Because like we were saying earlier, everyone wants to make a good film. You know, we're all here for the same reason. And if they signed on to be part of your project, you did something right already. Don't waste that opportunity.
Very well said. So before we wrap up, let's talk about Would You Die?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So Would You Die is your podcast. Yeah. Tell the listeners a little bit about it.
So Would You Die has gone through actually a lot of iterations since 2019. It started as a little YouTube show where I would, once a month, my friends at the Three Wise Men Media, I would go on their channel and I would make like a video where I would take Michael Myers, The Predator, and I would watch all of their films, kind of summarize everything. I would be like, these are the different ways Freddy Krueger could kill you. Here are the different ways people have killed Jason Voorhees. You know what I mean? And at the end of the episode, I would be like, so if you met the alien, the xenomorph, would you die? And that's how it started. I did that for 19 episodes. I did 19 episodes of it. So 19 months of work, almost 2 years. Right. And I was getting burnout from that. And also doing 19, you realize you're running out of horror icons kind of quick.
Right. Sure.
So I'm like, and it was, you know, I was killing myself every month. Like I would have to watch all the Leatherface films if I was doing the Leatherface. I'd have to watch all the Hannibal Lecter films when I did Hannibal, you know.
Yeah.
I'd have to read Christine when I wanted to do Christine, in addition to watching the film. So I was doing so much research and it was and I put so much of myself into the edit, like getting film clips and there was way too much work for one person, also working a full-time day job. Also, you know, I like to party, like it's bigger. And I had just started filmmaking too. This was around Best Day Ever and Ice Cream when I was doing this as a YouTube. No, it was before Ice Cream. It was only Best Day Ever. And I was already getting burnt out with it. So I'm like, but I like Would You Die? I like that as a show title. I want to keep it. So in October of 2021, I started making plans to just convert it into a podcast, take a break from the YouTube show, see if I liked podcasting a bit better, and then I'd go back to the YouTube show the way I was doing it. February of 2022, I started it as like a weekly interview podcast, not too dissimilar from this. I never went back to the YouTube show. I loved podcasting. And from February of 2022 until November of this past year, 2024, I talked to a different person every week about their favorite horror villain. And sometimes the episodes would get analytical and we'd really dive in. Other episodes would be like, so fuck, marry, kill Jason, Michael, Freddy. We went all over the place. And the whole concept of that, let's say you were my guest. Who would you say at this moment is your favorite horror villain?
Ooh, that's a good one. All right. Are you actually asking? Is this,
Yeah.
Are we doing this? Okay.
We're doing this.
So, all right. So I would probably say Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon.
What a great pull.
One of my favorite films. I got to meet Nathan Basil, who plays him. He was at Astronomicon a couple years back. I had him sign the Trick or Treat Studios mask. I got that like mounted on my wall. So
hell yes. So we would talk about Leslie Vernon for about hour and a half, and we'd go on our tangents. Because yes, for whatever reason, our Babadook episode will include a 15-minute tangent on Pikachu. That's just how these things go. And at the end of every episode, I'd be like, so if you met Leslie Vernon, would you die? And we would talk about that, and it was great. But I started getting burnt out with that too.
Okay.
Mostly the scheduling.
Sure.
The scheduling and the constant editing, and just like sometimes I'd be able to get ahead, but then a lot of time, and then people have to push, or they just ghost me or whatever. Like, stuff happens.
Right.
But it was that variable that was tiring me out, and the film stuff started to get better. Like Ice Cream, Spider, and Blood Witch, I all made while doing this weekly interview podcast and having a full-time office job.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah. So it wasn't just the podcast. It was just a bunch of things, but I was like, I need to make a change or else the change will make me, 100%.
100%. And that's, I feel like a lot of creatives are like this, right? Where we have so many things we want to do.
Yes.
And it's hard to focus on just one. And it's hard to set down, when you're juggling three things and deciding which one to set down. Well, okay, that might be a harder decision than it seems. Sometimes it's clear, like, oh, this is the one I can set down for now and pick back up on. But when you're in the middle of production on a film, it's like, oh no, we're supposed to shoot this. Like, I literally cannot drop the ball. So,
and like, I would love to drop the 9 to 5, but like, your boy likes to eat. Your boy likes to go to the movies. Your boy has student loans. Like, right. I can't drop that, unfortunately, because we got responsibilities too. We got people who depend on us. And so I would love to live in a world where it'd be like, oh, I don't need that corporate soul-sucking day job. I can just make my movies and do my podcast and be prolific. But that's not how it works.
Not yet.
Not yet. But in the meantime, you could be like, woe is me, it don't work that way right now. I'll just wait. Or you do it, and doing it's hard.
Yeah.
And it's okay to fail. I feel like people don't realize it's okay to fail, because failure is never permanent, right? Maybe on a project like a certain project is, but like you let yourself like mope a bit, you heal, you get yourself back up, brush yourself off, and you go on to the next project, the next adventure.
That is so well said. Resilience is key, especially I think for artists specifically, but in filmmaking, like, if you don't view your failures as a learning experience and that doesn't drive you to do better next time, you're in the wrong art form,
Right.
Because you need that resilience of an understanding that, especially just starting out, you're going to mess up. And honestly, even if you don't think you messed up, you're going to look back on this project 3 or 4 years later and be like, ooh, there's a lot I would have done different, or.
And that's how you grow, and that's how you get better,
Exactly.
And even if something's not like a failure, like a couple years, like right now, Spider is probably it's definitely my most successful. It might be my best. I don't know. Different people tell me different ones are my best, and I think that's a good thing.
Right.
But,
No, it's subjective.
But a couple years from now, if those films are still my best, I'm not getting better.
Right.
And that's something I'll have to, learn. But I like to imagine I would keep getting better, but also getting better is not a straight line.
No, not at all.
Ups and downs and
100%. So what are you doing with the podcast today?
so, and actually in February of this year, 2025, in case people are listening in 2027, I like to be clear,
Right.
You can tell I've been podcasting a while.
Sure.
But I found a consistent co-host, Anneliese Petersmarck, who I met her at Michigan State. We've been friends for over 10 years now. And I did a big co-host search and I met so many great people. But when she applied, it kind of just made sense.
Yeah.
And I interviewed so many people and I did my best, I also got extremely lucky and a lot of people applied and it was I did not interview everyone. I just simply couldn't. And I still feel bad. I still have guilt over it, but I just couldn't do it, especially once I kind of just thought about it and I'm like, that's my co-host. I know it.
Yeah, it just clicked.
Exactly. And it helps that we've known each other for so long because we already have a banter. We already have a dynamic. And we have a really good thing where it's like, I'm the horror expert, which I still think I have so much to learn. But compared to the average Joe, I would say I'm a horror buff now. And she's a much newer addition to the horror fandom. So there's two different perspectives already. I'm a filmmaker. She is a English teacher.
Okay.
So she's coming at it at an academic, thoughtful, analytical point of view, while I come in that shot was cool because there was a lot of red, and I'm just being my kooky self, and we just bounce off each other well, and now the show has transformed to we talk about. So right now we're in Macabre May, and we're talking about Sleepy Hollow. We're talking about Interview with the Vampire, Crimson Peak, and we will talk about these films. It's not really like a movie review. It's more why. With the Sleepy Hollow episode, we talked about like cryptids and legends, and we talked about the films of Tim Burton, and we talked about kind of how Sleepy Hollow fit into the pop culture of the time and how it's viewed now. We started the new podcast. Well, it's still Would You Die, but it's the new Would You Die. We started that in March we're doing monthly themes now. That was Mommy March, and it was Psycho, Carrie, Hereditary, and Evil Dead Rise.
Oh, nice.
Then we did Werewolf Wednesdays in April, and that was we did Werewolves, which came out this past December. We did Teen Wolf, Ginger Snaps, The Wolf of Snow Hollow, and The Howling. So we're just trucking, but yeah, but it's still Would You Die. So at the very end of the episode, we ask you, so if you were in The Howling, would you die?
Right.
You met up with the Headless Horseman in Sleepy Hollow, would you die? And Would You Die is still Would You Die, but I've had to evolve it because I'm evolving.
And that's the best way to look at it, right?
Mm-hmm.
If it's something that you want to continue and it's not working in the format it was, you've been evolving the show, you brought in a co-host now, and I'm sure, that's wonderful. That's the growth that you want when doing something like this, right?
Exactly. Because if you don't change, I just think if you don't change will come for you anyways. And then I like to be prepared, you know?
100%. 100%. And I think that's a really good thought, though, right? You either change on your own terms or you're forced to change.
Exactly. Right? Nothing lasts forever. And if you feel it, then you should do it. You like, I don't like, it's hard, right? Like, with filmmaking, that's something I can imagine myself doing forever, but films are always different. Right. Making Spider was not like making The Blood Witch. And making The Blood Witch is not going to be like what I'm making next, you know?
Right. 100%, man. And it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. The process should evolve and change as we grow as artists, as filmmakers. And that's the goal. And I think that's a very wise piece of advice for anyone who's just starting out with filmmaking. Definitely, we will also link the Would You Die podcast in the show notes. Go listen to it. I actually was introduced to Austin through the podcast. He did an episode last year with Eric Steele, who is the founder and co-runner of Horror Film Roulette. And Austin had some very nice things to say about our film parties over. So
I love parties over, dude.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Austin, thank you so much for being on. Where can people find you personally? Because we'll link Would You Die, your production company. We can link the YouTube for that because we'll have all of the shorts.
So all of my shorts, I put them on the Would You Die YouTube channel.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
Just so all my horror stuff is, all in one place. I'll have it under the Would You Die brand on YouTube. So Spider, Blood Witch, Ice Cream, and Best Day Ever, they're all on the Would You Die channel, as well as like the audio of my podcast, some video podcasts I did in 2024. I have a show with my friend Deanna Hope that she hosts, she writes, she edits, she does it all. All I do is post it for her, but it's called Spooky Spotlight, and she'll take a different horror gem it's bi-weekly, and she's doing a great job with it. So I love putting her episodes out because she's growing at it too, and she's already on episode 20, and it's awesome.
Wow. Wonderful. All right. So listeners, check that out as well. And yeah, Austin, thank you again for being here, man. Keep us updated with what you're doing next so we can have people go and support your work at festivals or donate to Indiegogo. That's what we want to do here. And definitely, listeners, go check out Austin's work. Thanks again, man.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been an absolute pleasure.
Good. I'm glad. And thank you for taking the time to tune in. As I mentioned, check out Austin's films in the episode description and make sure to check out the Would You Die podcast. For Filmmakers, we have added an Our Favorite Festivals section to our website where you can find and save all these festivals on Film Freeway. HereIFilms.com, you can find that link in the show notes as well. Thank you to those who have followed and given such kind reviews on our first 2 episodes now. If you haven't yet, please leave us a 5-star rating on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. It's the best way to grow this platform and expand the reach of these horror makers. Find us on Instagram at Midnight Horror Picture Show, and please subscribe on whatever platform you're listening to us on. Our theme music is by Nick Ferrari. You can find him at Nick_Ferrari on Instagram. New episodes should release every other Wednesday, and until then, stay spooky and keep supporting indie horror.